I'm Vince Sims. Welcome back to 5 Talk Street. Incorporating diversity and inclusion has become even more important to everyone, and especially to the businesses in our country. We're glad to say that our parent company, Comcast NBC Universal, has a long history of commitment to diversity and inclusion. My next guest today is Devoy Jennings, president of the Fort Worth Metropolitan Black Chamber of Commerce. He's been fighting for equality in the workplace for many years, and he's here today to talk to us about equity, especially economic equity and the importance it has in our communities. Thank you so much for being with us, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Good to see you again. So let's talk a little bit about equity in the communities. When we talk about that, explain to us what equity is.
Well, equity says you actually have a part of something, that you belong to it, and you just not being included, and you're not there for a diversity issue. That means that you have some ownership in the process or the product.
And we know that the Fort Worth Black Chamber is focused on creating economic equity on our community. What is that economic equity that you guys are working towards?
Well, we're working for different phases of it, but one that's apparent to most people is having access to capital, which is a big issue in our community, because when we don't have that access, it cuts off other things that we need to have, and it creates social problems and it creates injustice. So access to capital is a big one that we're really pushing hard on.
And as we're talking about making that accessible, what ways are you working towards trying to make that happen? What needs to be done?
Well, number one, we're talking to the people who have the capital, and basically it's the banks. And what we've said to those banking institutions is that there are various ways that you can create a better cash flow for the minority, especially the African American community. And one of those ways is to have the type of personnel in your bank that will be forthcoming as to what you're not doing. For example, a lot of our banks do not have African Americans in their C-suite. That's that corporate suite. Therefore, they're not in a decision-making position or can influence the institution in that decision-making. So what we're doing is saying to those banks, number one, you need to get some of us in your C-suites. And number two, you need to get us on some of your boards. Be there, your big board and your advisory board, preferably your big board, the one that really runs the corporation.
The times that we're in right now, and we're seeing a call for racial equality once again during these times, is this an important time to make sure that diversity is there in these C-suites and on these boards?
Oh, most so, because what we want to do is not look like we looked before we went into this pandemic. The problem with that is that, number one, we're losing a lot of our African American businesses because of the pandemic. So how do we want to look when we come out of it? We want to be better positioned than we were going into it, because the positions that we are in going into it has been devastating for us. The most negative things that happen economically basically have happened to us. So what we want to do is look better as we come out of it and not be set up for another pandemic of some type and we in the same position we were or are now.
And to help with that, talk a little bit more about some of the things the Fort Worth Black Chamber is actually doing to try to make sure we come out on it on the other side.
Well, we're talking naturally to the banks and other financial institutions, and then we're talking to the African American community itself. But we happen to know that when the business community gets behind a subject, a matter, a project, things do happen. So we are having various meetings with various segments in the business community to get them involved in pushing for some of this economic equity, because business run politics. Politics doesn't run business. And it's somewhat of a political game as to why these loans, this asset to capital, and et cetera, is not happening for the African American community. So we're getting our business counterparts involved. We have a memo of understanding with the Fort Worth Chamber and the Hispanic Chamber, and we want some memo of understanding with some other entities in business. And you can look at them as we have. We look at it by sections, like we're doing financial institutions. We're looking at doing real estate and architects and engineers. And we're looking at doing profits and nonprofit institutions. So we're doing them by segments, and hopefully going through these various segments, we're going to have a segment with developers, hopefully. And so we have to have some friends in this struggle.
I know this is a work that you've been working on in the Fort Worth Black Chamber for a long time. Right now, though, we're in this heightened state of supporting black businesses and an emphasis on black businesses. Is the time we're in right now helping the cause that you've been fighting for so long?
Yeah, the answer to that is yes, because we are really pushing very, very hard to make sure that these black businesses have some access and exposure to markets that they haven't had before. And when we create opportunities for these businesses with some markets and doing business differently from what they have been doing in the past, it makes a difference for those businesses. So we now is the time, even though it's a tough time, you can also discover, if you're really looking, some niche markets where black businesses can really fit in. So if you've ever been looking for a business opportunity, sometimes in a down economy is the best time to do that.
All right. Well, Mr. Jennings, we do appreciate your time today and all the work that you have been doing and will continue to do there with the Fort Worth Metropolitan Black Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Glad to be on.
Yes, sir. And we want to thank you for joining us today. And thank you for watching. I'm Vince Sims for 5 Talk Street. We will see you next time.